It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. I'm from Mexico City. I had the privilege to study with Dr. Martin Seligman 25 years ago. And since then, he has been a really, his ideas and he as well, but has been a real inspiration in my life. I finished the master's in applied positive psychology with him again a few years ago, and I also have the pleasure, Richard, to have studied with David Cooper Ryder as well, so in Case Western University. So I'm very happy to coincide. And I have worked for many years in the non-for-profit sector, and I have really seen the big impact of making a difference in the world at large, and how does that affect the perception that individuals have about themselves and their lives in their organizations. So my hope for this convening is to also think about how can we really inquire what the purpose of businesses have in the world at large, and how to bring about change at a societal level as well. So thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. This is Nestor Marquez. I'm Argentine, living in Mexico for the last 18 years. I'm Argentine Italian, so Silvia, right? So, yes. So, well, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm applied mathematician by training with a specialization in systems, in complex systems. I have an MBA, and now I'm finishing. I expect to finish my PhD in humanistic studies in the Tecnológico de Monterrey here in Mexico. And my subject of research is the future of work in 2050. That's why the planet there. So you have a picture of my neighborhood here. It's a very nice neighborhood. The problem are the neighbors. And we in general don't care much about the place, okay? And we throw dirt everywhere. So, but we are trying to fix, and I think this is part of our conversation. So, basically, my career was developed in companies, multinational companies. I started at DuPont, automating manufacturing plants many years ago. Okay, I also researcher of artificial intelligence, those back in 1985, more or less. Then I developed the second part of my career as a data scientist for Wunderman in advertising. So I moved from automated manufacturing plant to advertising. And then the last 8 years, it's more related with academics. I'm not an academic, 100% academic, but now more and more working in technology, in digital transformation and the future of work, because for me it's the two sides of the same coin. One is from the side of the companies and the other is from the side of the people. So, well, basically that is, I'm a writer. This is my book, Hope, Homo Singularis, yes, the evolution of Jenny. And it's an study of the evolution of Jenny from ancient Babylon to the artificial intelligence these days. So, well, basically, for me, it's an honor to be here and to experiment the new work. This work that is the kind of work that we like to do, not the other work that was the work that was painful, was difficult for us, and we needed to survive. So, thank you.
I'm Dana R.D. I'm the managing director of a consulting company called Corporate Anthropology Advisors. And my background is I'm a tactician like Janet. I work with companies. I call the practice corporate anthropology because I work with companies as communities. And it's a combination of psychology, education, understanding how people come together in work communities. Been doing that work for a long time. I was a partner at JP Morgan in their private equity group. And before that, I was a venture capitalist with a group called Flatiron Partners, always looking at companies building organizational structures. I'm very glad to be here because I talk to my clients quite a bit every day about the future of work. We talk about the next normal and the next normal after that and the next normal after that. And so, you know, all ideas are good ideas now, and we're looking for some dialogue among communities of work about what's next, both tactically and in terms of creating safe psychological space for people to go back to work. So I'm glad to be here, get some new ideas from all of you, and what great company to be in.
Great, it's so nice to listen your career path, and we can see some connections. So one of my moments in the academic career was in Taos Institute. So I had a chance to work a lot with Diana Whitney, who was my tutor at the time. I also had the chance 20 years ago to visit Monterey for investing. So I was in a company that are looking for the health tech parks that are building at that time in the Monterey University. So it's good to see the connections. But I'm Viviane Mansi. Today I work for Latin America and Caribbean countries. So I'm responsible for 40 countries and territories in my professional career. So today I'm connected to Toyota. So that's my responsibility there. I work with communication and sustainability. And specifically in Brazil, that is my home country. I'm also president of Fundação Toyota. That's an institution that looks for the sustainability in cities to help people to live better. And from the other side, I'm very devoted to universities here. I had a chance to build this career with both sides. So in a side, it's an organization. In the other side, I have a chance to maintain my curriculum and my energy in universities. Today, I'm quite connected with the business universities in Brazil, like Fundação Getúlio Vargas, Universidade de São Paulo, and Fundação Dom Cabral. They are the most important one, and Coursera through University of São Paulo in the international MBAs, talking about leadership communication. That's where I had all my books, my specialization, and my heart too. So it's a pleasure to listen and to stay with you here today. Thank you so much.
So what came to me is initially I was flooded with technology. Where is the technology? Because that was, and then I said, no, that's not really what I'm feeling. What I'm feeling is a patchwork quilt, different patches that lie on a table, and each one unique in its own shape and form, but weaving them together and creating something out of this whole cloth and putting patterns together, putting teams together, putting projects together, and then coming together and having it be a quilt from these diverse patches that you sew together in different forms purposefully, but forming these unique patterns. That's what came to me. And I think that's how I think about the future of work.
Thank you. Great. Arlen?
Yeah, so first as an image, I saw the earth and I saw like all the people around it as if we were really, doing agriculture, like really being of service to the world. And the word agent of world benefit came into my mind, which is from David Cooper Ryder. And then when I wanted to inquire about what I was feeling, I felt a sense of hope, and I also felt a sense of despair. And I think I relate that to the importance of really taking into consideration both challenges and aspirations, and how we need to take both into account in order to make peace with what is and what can be in the future. And in terms of my thinking process, I was drawn to thinking about bringing our own human values into action and thinking about our common and shared humanity, and also working towards the common good. So those were the thoughts that came to mind.
Thank you. Vivian?
So I think in something like a patchwork, as Dana said, I'm seeing a future with more collaboration because we must too. So in this way, we are learning the importance of collaboration, and I think it will design something good for the future. I see a completely new use of space because we are learning how to stay remotely, and it will be good in a sense because today we use talents who are in the big cities because there were where are the big companies, but now we can find new talents anywhere for every kind of company. So I think it's good because we bring a new way of thinking to the organization, and this new understanding of the space will be good to remove some barriers we had up until now in this sense. I also see more connection with purpose because people can decide among much more companies or organizations to work for, and then they will have the chance to say, okay, if I can choose, I can choose something that is close to my values. And I imagine that we have more space for that. I think we will do better with technology. So technologies will be part of us. Maybe today is something that we just pick and use. And I think probably in more 10 or 15 years, will be inside us, like a glass, like a chip, like something that will be part of the way we interact with other guys. And maybe it helps to understand better each other. So my view on technology is quite good, it's not bad. I think we are learning how to give more attention to dialogue. So I think it will be not so easy to build relations in the future, but everyone will be alert because we will know that's important, and we will know that we need to put some effort if possible. I see a lot of or increased number of small firms because this idea of the big organization do not fit well with everyone. So it's difficult to try to build a big culture, but bring a diversity together. So I think it will crash. We'll have small firms to make room for diversity, not in a very big organization. And the only side that I think is not so good in the future, and I'd like to mention too, is probably we will lose a lot of benefits. Probably we will lose the way to have this old protection that a company has today, because we will pay for jobs, not for careers. So we probably will be connected to the companies by project. In this way, today we have in some countries like mine, today we have a law that protects a lot the employee, and we probably will lose that in the future because a company can find good people everywhere. So if I can pay less finding a good guy in other country, why not? So we have big challenges with language to make it possible, because in a work like mine, just 1% of population speak some kind of English. And if we probably the technology will come in this way to permit us to make good conversation with everyone in one single language that I don't know which one is, but probably we encounter each other in a different way. And the language will not be more a barrier, maybe in 10, 20 years.
Interesting.
Nestor?
Okay, can I share screen?
Sure.
So this is, do you see? This is my You
I
remember
love
Wally?
the
Yes?
Louis.
When sorry, it's
Love.
in Spanish. I didn't realize it was in Spanish, but the images are. Okay. So again, trying to reflect about the future is not if the technology is good or evil, right? Is how, what kind of future do we want for us? For me, this is the center of the discussion. What kind of futures do we want? What are our objectives? What are our priorities? Okay? And then technology can be helpful or can be difficult or could be a problem in the future or not. So again, what future do we want for humans? And that is basically my point. Well, I like, for instance, the Millennium Project. Millennium Project, they have an exercise, and that was developed all over the world. I think 60 organizations did that kind of work in particular in most of the countries, 1/4 of the country of the world, 1/3, something like that. And it's interesting because are very easy futures. They are not trying to recreate the world in 2050, but there are 3 scenarios that they are presenting. One scenario is if we continue as we are today, okay? It's a mixed bag. I think it's that scenario. Well, some things go better, some things go worse. In average, some countries have developed some things very well, some others didn't. The same with the companies, the same with the individuals. And I like to represent that scenario with a movie. This is a very, let me remember the name. Now I forget. It's a good future, but not very good. It's a bad future, but not very bad. So it is in the middle. There is another scenario where we didn't follow everything that we are identifying that we have to do. So everything is wrong. I mean, the scenario is not very good. Actually, it's bad because the pollution is bad. The importance of the humans in society was not protected. We were not protecting humans, so the conditions are really bad. And the other, it's if we did everything right, if we study a little about the future and we identify critical success factors and we try to accomplish those factors, and we will have a better future. We know that as humans, it won't be the better scenario, it won't be the worst scenario. It will be something in the middle, right? A little up, a little down. So we have to decide where we want to have ourselves. So in general, it's important for us, and I really thank the International Cultural Federation to creating these kind of spaces, because here we are having this, for me, are very important, strategic conversations about the future. Okay, so if we discuss about the future, not because, okay, we will generate, the future will be like this. It's not what matters. What matters is if we talk about this openly, with open minds, and we identify the risks and the opportunities, because it's huge of opportunities and huge of risks. But more importantly, is where do we want to go? If I'm a pilot, plane pilot, okay? So the most important thing is not the plane. Where do you want to go? So because if you know where do you want to go, then comes the plane, the speed, the gas, and everything. Where do we want to go? That's the more important thing. So future could be, for me, future could be excellent, marvelous, but we have to work for that future. So that is my starting statement.
Thank you.
I, I'm going to pick up on something that Nestor said, and he said that, you know, it could be good, it could be bad, you know, but somewhere in the middle. I really think that if we don't take action, it could be bad. And I think we can alter the course of our own future of work by paying attention to some of the trends and listening to what people want and how they are processing all the changes that have gone on. I think technology will progress and progress and progress and faster and more dramatic. And I think there'll be fewer jobs. So what are we going to do? How are we going to help individuals find purpose and meaning at work? How are we going to find work for them to do? And if we don't start to reskill and retool and think about our education system and all of the ecosystems that come together to build our future, then we really will be in trouble. It will be that worst case scenario, you know? So, you know, people are people, and, you know, history is history, but we haven't changed. People are social creatures. They need connection. They want to feel valued. They like community. And we can go on and on anthropologically as we tell our stories of the ages. But again, how do we create work structures? How do we create value for our societies by finding meaningful ways that people can participate? And so we don't just have societies of haves and have nots and knowledge workers and then people without anything to do. And so I think we have to think about, how do we retool not just the world of work, but the world of education, the world of community, the world of responsibility to one another. And we really have to think about futures as being linked together in all of those ecosystems. Because technology will eat us. You know, it is an enabler, but it enables us to do away with things that traditionally were done with humans. So how are we going to teach humans other skills, other opportunities to find meaning?
May I add a comment on that because it resonates so much with me? I really agree that if we just wait, things happen, maybe it's not going a good way for everybody or for the majority. So in this sense, I think the challenge for organizations in the future is exactly to build this consciousness that help us to take good decisions to prepare the future, not just for our generation, but for the next one. So I really believe something that we can work together, I mean, universities, companies, and the society, is to think about the role of leaders at all to make it possible, a better future for everyone.
An example of that, Vivian, is that, you know, in current contemporary business and the world of work, people have mandatory retirement or they find themselves, you know, retiring at 55 to 65, and that, but our health developments have given us the
Yes.
opportunity to live to 80 or 100. So how will people take care of themselves?
Exactly.
And if we don't address that as a structure, as part of the infrastructure, providing opportunities for people to be purposeful at that stage of life, to share their wisdom, and economically to benefit from that opportunity to share their wisdom, then we have a social problem
Sure.
the likes of which we haven't seen before, and that's just one small example of what I'm talking about.
Yes, the point here, sorry, just one comment.
No,
The point here
but
is if we are a society of producers and the only thing that matters is the production of goods, is one thing. Okay, if we consider that if we create knowledge or we create wealth, but real wealth for people, will be something different. So that's why for me it's very important if we start defining what kind of futures do we want and what are our values to construct those futures, because that will be completely different futures. And the name of the three scenarios where it is complicated, a mixed bag, was the one of the middle. The other was political, economic turmoil, future despair. There was the bad scenario. And the other was if humans were free, the self-actualization economy. There was the best scenario when we do everything we need to do or we understand that we have to do to have a better future. And I was not trying to imply that our future will be the middle. No, no, no. In general, it's not the higher scenario, it's not the lower scenario. In general, it's something in the middle. How much for the top or how low? But that will be depending of the kind of futures that we want, and the kind of discussion that we generate, and the kind of actions that we take.
May I add also? I think I'm thinking about many different things. One is that if we're trying to think about the future of work, it would be very important to invite the new generations to join us in this conversation. I don't know if you have actually thought about that, because on the one hand, I think we are seeing younger and younger people who have a lot of impact in the world at large through mass media, through many different technological opportunities, and also because of the innovation that they bring to the world. But we are seeing also lower levels of empathy, a lot of new younger people whose emphasis in life is money and fame. So it is very important to understand really what is moving these new generations, and I think there are plenty. And I think what Dana said about contemplating also different stages in life and the wisdom that each of us bring into the table. But also I think it's important to take into consideration that, the development of work in history has changed dramatically, but in different places of the world, many of us are experiencing like the exchange of goods that happened maybe centuries ago in some parts of the globe are still happening today. So I think that diversity and I think really bringing about values and the importance of congruency in leadership and in action. And I do believe also that something that would be wonderful if it happened was if businesses were able to realize the enormous power that they have really in the shaping of history and the shaping of policy. Unfortunately, I don't see any changes happening from the political realms. And I only see that the civil society will be able to really make changes through organizations. So I know maybe I am going off to a different route of thought, but I think that's also very important in terms of, how do we make sure that every person in our workplaces and every company in the world at large really matters and is shaping the reality and the future of our lives, both individually and collectively.
Everyone, so it's good. We have a lot to say about meaning. And you know, I saw your comments about the meaning on the base camp. It was, I go in your way. And I think we have chance to think much more in a collective way than in an individual way. So in this sense, we can bring one more layer, that is this one, to talk about purpose. So in the past, we were talking about vision, mission, but at the end of the day, we experienced something that is good for an organization, but not for all. So now, because of the request of the world in terms of sustainability, we are being invited again to review those things, and we are putting name on that, like purpose. So it opened the door to discuss the meaning of work in our life. Because also, I think we discussed a lot in this last decade about engagement. And engagement is a word that has much more to say to the companies than to the people, because engagement is something that the organization can really see the value. But for us, for the employees, we see other things. We lose everything to be engaged at a company. So we lose our families, we lose our health, we lose a lot of things. So we need to rebalance that in a way that we can build long relationships sometimes. And the way to do that is maybe to talk less about engagement and more about meaning at work, because meaning is something that is more balanced among companies and people.
Nice. Very nice. Can I share a book? I really look this book. Let me see. I don't want to get the picture out. Just I don't want to kill the magic, right? But
Team Human.
Team Human. Yes.
I look for that. Thank you. Thank you for the recommendation.
Douglas Roscoff. And it's, what is nice, and my friend from Brazil and also from the Italian, this is, I see here a synonym with the football, soccer, right? In what team do you play?
Great.
Do you play for the Team Human, or
nice
team do you play? And this is fantastic, because I have the perception that we do not play in general for the Team Human, right? Because this is like pee and poo in the river where you are drinking water, okay? And this is what we are doing with our world, with our environment. For instance, I'm a little angry with Milton Friedman. He's concerned about that, right? Milton Friedman, he gave a statement in 1970. It's much more profound than the interpretation that we did to his statement, because he's really clever and smart. And he said the only commitment of a company is to earn money. The only social commitment of a company is to earn money. And that was in the 70s. And I think that was harmful for society and for the environment and for the planet and for humans, because that make a kind of authorization. That was what most of the yuppies took as a definition and as an invitation to earn money without consequence, without paying attention to the consequences. And then we dirty the rivers and the soil and the air, and we poison people when selling our products or selling our food, okay? So, and I think that is And that is because of the approach. We consider that there were two different things: development on one side, and the other, the planet. But now we understand we have to do the two things at the same time, and that we lost 50 years, and now we don't have the time. We have to make it quickly. So the importance to understand for what team we are playing it's crucial.
Look, for many people, the meaning of work is to put food on the table, to have a shelter, you know, to just get the basics of life, you know, and, you know, that is as valid as to be able to be psychologically fulfilled by the kind of work you do. I mean, we have to think about what's the future of work as what's the future of populations and society. And that's what Nestor, I think, is trying to say, you know, that we live in these communities and we have to worry about each of us have to worry about the society at large and how we're going to be sure that people are, one, able to sustain themselves and their daily needs. That comes first. And that has to do with, you know, either the society taking care of them or for them to find meaningful ways to take care of themselves and find fulfillment through work, right? And so, you know, what I think we're talking about is the opportunity to say that work is a calling, you know, that it has a purpose in that, you know, it has multiple purposes, but a purpose in first providing you with the opportunity to live the kind of life you envision for yourself. And I think, you know, the future of work for me has to do with the future of teaching people about work, because there is no such thing as work-life balance. Forget it, those days are over. You know, work-life balance used to be, you know, when you were the family unit farming and trying to just get the food out of the ground and all sharing the responsibilities and, you know, everybody taking, you know, their turn at doing what they needed to be able to harvest the crops. Well, we're well beyond that. And so, you know, we have to teach people early on, you know, starting in just the youngest days, that work-life integration, that work is part of your life. And so you have to find ways of taking control of your own destiny in that regard. And we have to start looking at children and helping them to identify their skills and talents, giving them the tools to acquire knowledge, because jobs that we may have in 25 years may not be the jobs you envision in 50 years. So how do you continually become a learner and reskill and take responsibility? And I think, you know, that bears very well for coaches, because, you know, we're here to assist people on that journey of gaining the knowledge that they need, both personally and professionally, right? And, you know, it's just really interesting because just recently I've interacted with several technology entrepreneurs who are developing technologies that people could go on their own guided journeys for their development, you know, to find ways to develop their skills. And, you know, one of the products is for what we call the underemployed, people that have not had access to jobs because they don't know the basics, how to apply, how to write a resume, how to be interviewed, how to write an email. You know, we just take those things for granted, and we have to teach those skills. Those are like basic skills. If we want people to be employed, we have to teach them skills that can get them employment, you know, and meaningful employment and singing to your soul and finding things that give you flow and satisfy you. That comes next. But first you have to just give people the basic wherewithal to be able to find employment and to cultivate their interest and their skills and to find their inner purpose, their calling in life. And I think, you know, for me, that's one place we need to start. And then we can't count on organizations anymore to take that responsibility. We have to teach individuals and to be mentors, to take responsibility for their own development, to find ways to go on guided journeys to find their purpose and meaning. I counsel young people trying to get their first internship to senior executives that are trying to make acquisitions. And purpose and meaning is something that always comes up in the conversation. And people want to find that purpose and meaning in their work, but again, it takes a long time to have that dialogue, and we should be starting that dialogue at a much earlier point in time, and providing opportunity for people to learn about careers. I find so many people that graduate colleges, or that graduate high schools, or that finally have to contribute to their families, and they don't have even the faintest idea of what they could do, or how work operates, or the world of work operates. And so we have to do a much better job at that.
I always like to think of all of us in this, with this vision of being all members of a community, and in all the leadership trainings that I do, I highlight the importance of personal leadership, of you taking the lead, of yourself, of your organization, of your team, regardless of the rank that you have in the organization. And on the other hand, I can see how if we wanted to really bring about rapid change, which I think we kind of agree that it's really very important to see that rapid change approaching or becoming true, then we do need to think also about the consciousness of the organization itself. So I like to think about the future of work in a way. The idea that comes to mind are the pillars of well-being that Bhutan has developed in their country, and that they have these important pillars, or or ethical standards, or the important things that are the guiding forces of new policies, of new products being developed. And I think it would be wonderful if we were able to think about what Nestor was saying about this human team, that takes into account as pillars of well-being different, we can think about many different things, but the idea that comes easier for me is to think about pollution, as you also mentioned, Nestor, and how can we evaluate if the companies are really doing something that will bring about more added value and benefit to the world, or is it taking resources and health away from this large pool of resources that we have as humans? When I think about human beings, I also think about human dignity, because that can happen regardless of the place that you have in this organizational diagram. You can bring about dignity in letting people in the organization know that they are adding value. If it's, cleaning the restroom, if it's serving food in the kitchen, like those people have a tremendous impact in the well-being of the whole organization, especially when we met physically at some, at the same place. But I think bringing again in education, as Dana was saying, human values to the table, and understanding that work was created to serve humanity. It was not the other way around. It was not humans being created to serve work or serve organizations. So understanding the real purpose. And I know some organizations are working on like helping their collaborators make their dreams come true. So initiating these dialogues where we can see what does, what do people in our organization value, and how can we be of service and become servant leaders to make those wishes come true, and to enable or be of service for those people to take on the leadership in their own lives. It's not that the organization needs to now take care of individual dreams, but really understanding what the fabric of the organization is really like. Um, and I want to just mention two other things. One is the importance of autonomy in organizations, like people feeling they are autonomous and they can really bring about change for themselves and for the world around them. And this idea of intrapreneurship that I talked to you about, which is this capacity that some people have in organizations to become active leaders and entrepreneurs within organizations. And that has, I think, is proven, I don't know that it has proven totally, but it's proven to be a nice way to invite more autonomy, more leadership, more, creativity, and also a sense of purpose and meaning to the workplace.
I think I so agree with everything you said. It's amazing that during the pandemic, we labeled a whole group of individuals as essential workers, right? The people, the clerks in the grocery stores, the people who are delivery people, and all of a sudden, the value of their esteem, because we saw them as heroes. They were rescuing us. They were taking care of the rest of us while we were hiding out in our electronic cottages. And, it changed the perception of how the worker felt about themselves and about how we felt about a whole group of workers that always contributed to our lives, but we didn't see them or reward them in the same regard. And I think in companies, and I write about this in my book, we need to always say to people, you're doing a good job at what you do really well. And they don't have to move up a ladder to get more money or more status or more rewards in the system. We have to say, you're valued by this community for the type of work you do. And people want to be associated. The future of work is the same as the past of work. People want to feel good about what they do and feel valued at what they do and be respected for the work that they do. And I think, regardless of how many machines we bring in the workplace and how data drives us and AI, and people will still want to feel that they're making the contribution to one another. That's the point I was trying to make about anthropologically, we're social creatures. We want to be we want to live communally, and autonomy is really important, because if we micromanage and don't give people a voice and an opportunity to feel like, they can be their authentic selves at work, then, again, going to the future, that's going to be as problematic for organizations, because you want people to feel that they can bring innovation, bring ideas, bring their authentic self to work.
Can I say something? My problem is with the definition of work at this time, right? Because sometimes we talk like work is something specific, and work is changing all the time. For instance, we have the work in the Industrial Revolution was one kind of work, yes, like the Charles Chaplin movie. Remember, it was making manual work with a machine, or the feudal work of slaves, of the people in the countryside, or the work in service, or the work with the artificial intelligence. It's changing. These ideas are changing. I like now to say in the same, we don't have to work. We don't have to work anymore. And I took this from a book, the book from Bob Black, The Abolition of Work. So I don't know if some of you read about the book. I will show you a picture of the, yes, can I share screen? Well, I'm not sure. Yes, here. You see my screen? The Abolition of Work? Yes. And in Spanish, there is a man and there is a donkey on top of his bag. Do you see that in the screen? Or not? Yes.
Yeah.
So, la abolición del trabajo in Spanish, right? And it's funny because when I started to read this book, they said, no, I'm not going to like this book because it could be a communist idea about work. No? So, but finally, it's interesting because what he was just as an advice, I think the discussion between communism and the capitalism doesn't make any sense right now, because the problem is that they are not talking each other, so it's very difficult to get something out of that ideologies. But this Bob Black, it's funny because he started saying we don't have to work, but he was talking about the work in the past, and work is changing right now. Work is changing right now. It's a knowledge work. For instance, I'm not really sure if what I do for living is work. I used to work in the company from when I was 15 years old until 6 years ago. Every day I was part of a company, a multinational company. I was very happy and I did make a lot of money. But that changed completely. And now I'm working for myself. I'm not making as money as I was doing in the past. But now I'm doing the kind of things that I really value and like. But I'm not sure if this is the kind of work that we are talking when we are talking about the future of work. Hopefully it will. So my point here is I have the perception that machines could take all work in the future, right? And also I believe that the Moore's law and the doubling of the capacity of the computers and machines every 2 years and 2 years and a half or something like that will help us to enter into an abundant economy. Yes, probably. Because if we are increasing our power of providing goods and knowledge and information and everything, probably we have to discuss how to live in that. And I'm going back to Dana's question. Yeah? So what are we going to do? Well, probably we are discussing a job that is meaningless for the future. Yes, because I'm considering that we are living today in an abundant world. It's unevenly distributed, okay? But today if we measure the quantity of disposal that we are generating, we are disposing more than we are consuming. So for me, these concepts are related. And also I write in the chat, probably that's why we have a lot of people talking about the universal basic income, because probably we have to unbundle the idea of work with the idea of sustain. That is part of my theory, my work. I did a study, like I did in my book, trying to understand how was work evolving over the history and what work means. There is a political meaning of work, there is a social meaning of work, from learning, from sociological, psychological, from the perspective of law, for instance, okay? And it has to do with minorities, with the equality, gender equality, for instance. So work is so locked or bundled with the idea of life that is very difficult to sometimes to separate. And probably we have to start thinking in separating that idea, or considering or discussing how will work be evolving in the future. For instance, what I'm doing, not working for a company, is work. Because for me, work was working for a company like DuPont. The idea of working for DuPont was a lifelong life of working for a company, even working for WPP, Wunderman, right? And now I don't have a boss. I don't have nobody who is giving me social security, nobody who is giving me advice on a social network. So probably we have to also to consider how work will be evolving in the future. Probably will be something completely different than the kind of work that we have in general, or society have in general in Denmark, is the work in the industrial revolution.
I think in terms of learning, I think it's the challenge part of the future. One thing is today we are quite boring because we are trying to learn something from the last century to solve problems from the next one. So we are still focusing in something that we can put our hands, but the future may maybe ask us to learn from beyond what we are seeing right now. So maybe the role of art, the role of the understanding of the whole, not just the part, will be critical for the future. That's one thing. The other thing is that I think going digital is good because we open doors for people that's outside of the learning process today. So if we are able to bring more people, maybe someone that we are not seeing, and give them some opportunity to learn different things, probably we have more talents in the future. So now we are focused in very small communities that have access to these kind of things. If we open those opportunities for more guys, maybe we have the aha moment because more people can bring their ideas to that. So that's my two big points for the future related to learning.
Well, learning will have a crucial role, right? Because learning problem solving, but learning for me is crucial. The problem is what to learn, right? Probably that's the big question. What are the kind of things that we have to learn?
Yeah, well, I wanted to see that with the experience that I had working with students from many different parts of the world, and many of them leaders of organizations, of course, leaders in their own families. But I think one of the main I think one of the main tools that we need to teach is that of self-discovery and of learning about, you know, personal well-being and what does that entail, and learning more about our own character strengths and our own values, because that really gives purpose to the way that we use our qualities and abilities at work and in life in general. And I also think that one crucial element for that we should, you know, learn and become better at is that of increasing our perspective and overcoming our own personal biases. We are listening more and more about, you know, the importance of diversity and inclusion and lots of things, but sometimes, you know, we decide on our own or on our end, what's going to happen to the organization and to certain groups of people, but we sometimes don't initiate a conversation with people who think very differently from us. So I think that really bringing about conversation about many different topics and including opposing views with the aim of building something new together. And as Vivian was saying, something that we might we might have never seen yet, but some possibility that might happen in the future that is completely new, and where we not only want to avoid the mistakes that we've done in the past, but when we have this idea that we are one humanity, we are one common humanity, we are one organization. Sometimes, exchanging the perspectives of, for the leader to share, or the CEO to share with the employees, what has been his or her life trajectory, what are the dilemmas that he or she has been facing in his or, I hate this his her, but in his life, and for the leader to be able to listen, also the life struggles of people, to bring our common humanity together, I think would really make such a learning contribution. And I think that is something that also Appreciative Inquiry has been trying to do through the Appreciative Inquiry Summits, where they bring all the stakeholders to the table. And I think that's a practice that I think could really bring about a lot of consciousness into our daily lives and the future of our lives working together. So, yeah.
So I predict that in the future of work, you're going to see people with very entrepreneurial opportunities. They'll be sitting in their homes, and they'll have a specific skill set that a company may need for a short period of time. And rather than joining the company, they may have a team around them. They'll make a deal with the organization to use their particular set of expertise, their particular project team around them to solve a problem. And so they'll have to change the nature of relationships. There'll be sole entrepreneurs who are able to put together a group and lead that group. They'll have to collaborate with other groups within the organization that they take. They'll have to take responsibility for their own learning. And so organizations are going to have to change their cultures to make it very clear what their culture is and how to communicate it to these independent entrepreneurs that they're going to bring on their platform. And I think you're going to see a lot of these groups. So for example, there's a drug company now that realized they could only hire in their budget 50 of their top research scientists. But if they put out a request and say, here's how much money we're going to spend on the development of this particular drug, and we'll look at proposals from independent organizations and independent individuals on how to get there, and we'll give you that money to solve that problem. And so what that does is that creates sort of like an X Prize, within a corporation to challenge people around the globe, because somebody said that before, we're no longer, now that we all work, many of us work remotely, we're not locked in to going to any particular location, but we can be part of these virtual organizations where we, contribute and solve problems. And another trend, which we all hit up on, is taking responsibility for our own learnings, making sure that our brand and our skills and our relationships with others that we could bring into these projects. And you're seeing that already. You saw that pre-pandemic, but you're seeing that a lot in conversations that I'm having with workers now about they don't ever want to go back into their office. They want to maintain their independence. People are getting hired now virtually where they've never seen each other and they're contributing, and so we've got to change organizational structures in business to prepare ourselves for this very entrepreneurial, independent contractor, independent learner environment that I think is ahead of us. The organization is really going to have to be sure they have the right people in the right seats at the right time. That doesn't mean they have to own those people, and they have to be part of that community forever. It may be just as simple as, what are the skills and the expertise we have now? What are the learnings we need now to propel our organization to the next level? And I'm not suggesting everything will be virtual. There'll be cores of people within organizations who will be mentors and guides, but there'll be a lot of these independent entrepreneurial teams that come in and out of projects and work. You'll see a lot of collaborations between companies you never thought were collaborators, and it's like some of the new airplanes are assembled by multiple corporations in multiple parts of the world because they have effective technology that allows for bidding platforms and for vetting platforms, and and people come together. So somebody makes the propeller and somebody makes the seat and somebody makes the seat belt, and they assemble it. The core engineers assemble it and they put out the requests, and you're going to see a lot of things made like that. A lot of organizations come together like that, and you're going to see a lot of collaborations by independent entrepreneurs that are responsible for their own learning.
Nice.
I don't know that's the truth, but I predict that that's one of the future trends in work.
It's a very good hypothesis. I'm working, for instance, I'm creating a laboratory at Tech of Monterrey, and we call it the lab for the future of business. And the idea is it's a platform. It's a platform. It's a platform where you have here companies looking for solutions, and the intention is to have a huge community of a university, like in the case of Tech of Monterrey. You have the teachers, you have the consultants, you have the partnerships, you have the students, you have the graduates, okay? And the intention is how to put together these people that need solutions, they are looking for solutions, and how to make the matchmaking with those who may have the answers. And you say, well, those is what consulting companies does. Well, but this is a combination of consulting plus science. It will be applied science, but it also could be basic science. So what we are considering here in this idea is, if I can take a business problem and I can decompose somehow, okay, not linearly, but if I can decompose in several problems, they can turn to the community and say, hey, who has the skills and the knowledge or the experience to solve this kind of problems? They bring back the solutions, and we integrate the solutions, and we go back to the client. In that sense, it has to do with what Dana just mentioned. Probably there is crowdsourcing out there. A lot of people, the magic of the wisdom of crowds, okay, that can help us contribute to solve problems that more and more we don't know the solutions, because probably in the past we were facing a lot of problems, business problems. We already knew the solution, but we have to make the right diagnostic to choose the right solution, the framing. But now we are facing a lot of problems where we don't know the answer. So this is changing. But this Jaron Lanier in the Who Was in the Future, he's saying we have crowds generating a lot of knowledge, and well, we have to find out ways to compensate those ideas, because people is not going to give those ideas for free for always. And finally, yes, probably, again, I agree with Anna, probably we will have a lot of independent people. I read some article a couple of months ago that also probably will be, probably organizations will have a very small group of stars that these companies will try to keep forever if they do well. And these organizations with this very small group of people, they will be like, okay, I'm your advisor on how to develop your career and your life, because I want you to keep evolving with us in a very long-term relationship. So probably will be highly independent with the big crowd, but also a very strong relationship with a small group, probably. Again, these are interpretations. Also, for me, something that we have to consider, what will happen with DAOs, those distributed autonomous of organizations, that they are coming from technology, smart contracts, smart solutions, those organizations who don't have people. So those are the challenges for us. Imagine if even today we have organizations that don't have people at all, not even in the creation of the organization. So how this work will be evolving in the future. So I like the way we have chosen the conversation, because we are trying to, these broad ideas, we are trying to bring those ideas to life in real examples, right?
So there's going to be crops and crops and crops of new industries that we can't even imagine now. So, you know, if I would have told you 5 years ago that you would be doing many of your doctor's visits virtually, you know, you probably would have said, no, not me. You know, that's a very intimate conversation I have to have. But telemedicine, for example, and the way that it's growing and the technology that's enabling it, and the, you know, opportunity to, you know, serve more people than you could imagine, you know, in a more efficient way, you know. When we talk about sustainability, you know, I had a conversation with several friends this week. They were all putting, you know, Tesla battery roofs on their houses. You know, if you told me that my house was going to have a battery roof that would be self-generating, you know, I would say, you're kidding. When is that going to happen? And that's happening now, and that didn't exist, you know, several years ago. So we're going to see new industries. We're looking at cities now, and we're talking about cities. Cities have to be reimagined, because cities only thrive because people came in to go to work, and they worked in offices, and they worked in restaurants, and they worked in retail, and they worked at, well, let's uncouple that. Where is retail? It's all e-commerce. Do they have to come into a city to do that? No, not necessarily. You know, and what about some of the other things that people came to offices to do? They don't have to do that. So what are we going to do with all those skyscrapers and buildings in cities? And are we going to live in cities at all, or are people going to be ex-urban? And how do we reimagine cities so that they become cultural opportunities? And what about the maker community? I don't know about you, but this year I was home so much, I wanted to work on my house. I wanted someone to build me a bookcase, and somebody to help me, you know, with other things that had to do with making my home office my home office. And so there's a whole maker opportunity in the future of work. Craftsmen, artists, you know, artisans of all kinds. What about caring for the elderly? You know, we used to think that nursing homes were the place, and you know, now we know nursing homes may not be the ideal place for elderly people. So they're talking about, for example, in New York, can they convert some of those business skyscrapers to multi-purpose housing? And can we get young families to take care of seniors in a shared community? And that's a gainful way to get employment and work, you know? So again, you know, I think if your imagination, and we should all be imagining, because that's what the future is, you know, there will be new industries, lots of them, and new opportunities. We just have to make sure that continuous learning and the opportunity to educate people to take advantage of these new opportunities. There's still a lot of people that can't play in the digital economy because they're not computer literate, you know? And, you know, how could you survive the last year if you didn't know how to turn on a computer, you know, even if you weren't working, just psychologically, if you couldn't be connected using technology? And there were lots of people that didn't have that skill set. So, you know, I think when we talk about the future of work, it's not one thing. I think, Alicia, you're right, but we have to imagine new industries, new opportunities, new ways to educate people so that they can be employed and they can find purpose and meaning in their lives, and their lives are integrated with their work.
I'm still thinking.
Okay.
No, we can start. I think I make so many notes about what we shared here. It's not so easy to identify just one point of the future, but I think I'm seeing here so much energy to help people to deliver their best, whatever they want. It can be an organization in the public arena, in their own business. But I think consciousness could be a good point to start, because I have some concern. Maybe we are so focused on our work today that we are seeing the trees, not the forest. And it's a good point to make sure people are being able to see more than they are exactly positioned today, because it helps to think about the future. We need to give 3 steps back to make sure we are seeing the big picture. And because of that, we see in a more broad view, maybe we can find better solutions for the future.
Thank you. Dana?
So at this stage in my life, my work is to help organizations and individuals and organizations adapt and be resilient to what's happening now and what's happening next, you know, with always a mind's eye to the future. So reimagining workplaces, reimagining organizations, helping leadership to be authentic and creative, and, you know, think about new structures and listening to workers, listening to people about how they like to work. I had an interesting experience. I had one of the CEOs I coach call me this week, and he said, I have a mutiny. And I said, what's that? What do you mean? And he said, I told my group that we were going to open the office in September, and they're pushing back. They don't think we need the office. And, you know, again, that was the beginning of our conversation. So, you know, at this stage, my work is to help people do that. And in my philanthropy, you know, I'm working with Working Nation, that is looking at the future of work for veterans, the future of work for in the longevity economy, the future of work for diversity and inclusion, the future of work in philanthropy. What are the technology, you know, environmental jobs. So, you know, both personally and professionally now, nothing makes me feel better than, and maybe it's because I found so much satisfaction in my work, and it gave me so much purpose and meaning throughout my life, of helping others to find purpose and meaning through work in their lives and envisioning a future where that can be possible.
Thank you. Nestor?
Yes, I like what we are discussing. I like what I'm enjoying very much what we are talking about. Sometimes I think like we as humanity in general, we are like new rich, okay? New rich. We pay too much attention to brands, to stuff, to things, right? Because this is something new. This is basically happened from the Second World War on. When we say we finished the Second World War, we have the manufacturing, the plants, manufacturing sites of arms, of tanks, of planes, and then they say, okay, we have all these facilities that were producing huge amount of things. What we are going to do? And someone imagine, okay, why don't we try to generate wealth for people? They have a reason to spend money and to grow. But I think we are still paying too much attention to those goods. And this is probably something that we have to evaluate for the future. If the future will be that will be as important as it is today. That's why I'm telling this idea of the new rich. Okay, the new rich wants to be with brands all over the body, in the hat, everywhere. But when they get accustomed to that richness, they start to concentrate on more interesting things. For instance, in The Sopranos, do you remember the series? At the beginning, they were all the time looking for more money, and then they were looking for something better for their families, more aspirational. And I think in that sense, we need to take under consideration utopias, the utopias for life and because utopias were very important for humans when we don't have a clear idea where to go. Utopias do you understand when I say utopias? I'm pronouncing that well? I'm not sure if I pronounce it that well. It's like, it helps us like when, imagine that we are in the forest, it's late and it's full of fog. If we stay in the same place, probably it will be the dinner of an animal. If we start to make rounds, the same. We need a north or a south or an east, whatever. We need some reference just to be sure that we are going anywhere. And so I think that we need to create new utopias for business, for societies, for individuals. And I think these conversations help me to identify those utopias. I'm talking about open utopias because there are open utopias and closed utopias. The closed utopias are like the utopias of the Nazism, of the fascism, right? If you don't share those utopias, you probably will be dead. The open utopias help us to develop this kind of strategic conversations. And Oscar Wilde has a saying expressing that progress is the success of utopias. So you don't have to fulfill the utopia. If you progress as a society because of those utopias, so they have sense.
Well, I'm going to be very quick. I just think that that sometimes thinking about meaning at work is like it's like a mirror between the understanding what's the real purpose of an organization and what is the real purpose of me as an individual within that system. So the better able we are to really understand if we are fulfilling our real purpose in terms of as an organization or as an individual. If I'm, really enhancing well-being within my company, within the world, or within my family and my colleagues and myself, I think understanding that those two are mirrors of each other, I think that opens up an opportunity to understand them better, and also to know that we can actually be a change, be a catalyst of change. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed this a lot, and I learned quite a lot from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Nice meeting everyone.